Welcome to the first of 4 modules containing technical information related to the South and Southeast Asia Air Improvements in the Region program, also known as the SSEA-AIR program. The focus of this module is to introduce countries to the SSEA-AIR program and to air quality action plans, which are a key component of the program. Battelle, under a cooperative agreement with US EPA and the US EPA's technical team, prepared this module's contents. This module has several objectives. First, we will introduce the SSEA-AIR program to those participants to whom it may be unfamiliar. For those participants who are already participating in the program, this portion of the module will serve as a refresher and a reminder of how we have arrived at this point. Next, we will define the goals of the upcoming SSEA-AIR workshop in Taiyuan that is coming up in late July 2019. This workshop will focus on the development of an air quality action plan in which each country will identify a known air quality problem and develop a plan to address it. Finally, we will describe the components of an action plan and provide examples. You will find that the Air Quality Action Plan template that we have provided mirrors the description of the action plan given herein. We recommend that you review the template before working your way through the slides in this module on an action plan's components. So what is the SSEA-AIR program? The SSEA-AIR program was introduced during the Air Quality Management Workshop in Taipei in June 2018. During this workshop, participants from the 10 partner countries listed on this slide shared information on their countries and/or municipalities. This included information such as population, land area, topography, levels of air pollution with trends over time, and each country's current air quality management, or AQM, program, including the types and locations of air monitors and laws governing air pollution control. The participating countries also discussed successful air quality-related projects, along with the challenges that are slowing down progress toward decreasing air pollution. Finally, they talked about next steps to improving air quality in their countries and municipalities. The information exchange in Taipei set the stage for attainment of the overall aim of the SSEA-AIR program, which is to promote successful air pollution control actions and technologies, to assist participating countries to build capacity to manage their air pollution problems, and to produce real and measurable air emissions reductions in South and Southeast Asian countries and municipalities. The overall goal of the SSEA-AIR program can be broken down into 3 main objectives. The first is to build technical capacity in participating South and Southeast Asian countries to enhance their air quality management or AQM programs, and their ability to perform technical assessments of their current air quality problems. The second objective of the SSEA-AIR program is to provide a forum for developing and showcasing successful actions taken to reduce air pollution, and for exchanging technical information to help countries implement actions or control measures. For example, other countries can learn from Taiwan's success over the past decade toward improving air quality, as shown in the figure on this slide. The technical capacity building and sharing of best practices serve as the foundation for the key component of the SSEA-AIR program, which is to develop and implement an air quality action plan which includes one or more new actions, that is, air pollution control measures, that leads to quantifiable reductions in emissions of pollutants. The SSEA-AIR program recommends that countries target fine particulate matter, PM 2.5, for pollution reduction because this pollutant has been the focus of much research and is commonly used as an indicator of exposure to air pollution, although other pollutants such as NOx, ozone, sulfur dioxide, and VOCs may be targeted. At the workshop in Taipei, each country or municipality identified current projects that could help them reduce air pollution. For example, India wants to bring 95 cities into attainment with current air quality standards. Jakarta, and Indonesia more broadly, wants to raise public awareness regarding its voluntary motor vehicle emissions testing program. Japan is seeking to reduce evaporative emissions from motor vehicles. Several countries, Malaysia, Nepal, and Thailand, wish to control pollution from open burning. Mongolia wants to reduce emissions from coal combustion. Philippines is looking to require stack testing on industrial facilities that burn bunker fuel oil that contains high levels of sulfur. Taiwan wants to retire older motor vehicles and replace them with newer models with modern emissions controls. Vietnam stated their interest in implementing emissions controls on stationary sources. Each of these projects is an opportunity to reduce air pollution, but each also comes with challenges to implementation. The way to overcome these obstacles is by developing and implementing a realistic and achievable air quality action plan. So what is an air quality action plan? It is a framework or blueprint that describes how improvements to air quality will be achieved for a known air pollution problem. An action plan is based on science and include one or more substantive actions or control measures that lead to quantifiable reductions in pollutant emissions and/or measured pollutant concentrations. An action must be new rather than one that is already underway or has been completed. Action plans should define the air pollution problem and state the control measure that will be implemented to achieve the quantifiable reduction in emissions. When developing an action plan, one should describe the geographical extent of the problem, the pollutants of concern, remembering that the focus of the SSEA-AIR program is on PM 2.5, when and how often excessive levels of pollution occur and how high are the observed concentrations, the sources of air pollution, the control measures that are proposed and how their effectiveness will be evaluated. Also, the plan should discuss if there is a need for further development of your country's air quality management program, such as updating an emissions inventory or deploying additional air monitors, as part of your plan to implement your selected action. As shown in the Air Quality Action Plan template that accompanies this module, action plans have 11 distinct components that are categorized under two major headings. Development of your action plan starts with characterizing the airshed, which can be defined as a geographic area within which air pollution is freely and routinely transported, and that is influenced by shared sources of pollutants, weather, and terrain. Thus, under the airshed characterization section of your action plan, you will describe the area where the pollution problem is occurring, along with measured concentrations, emissions, and sources. As stated previously, we recommend making PM 2.5 the focus of the SSEA-AIR program because this is a good overall indicator of air pollution and is caused by a variety of sources. And, as shown in the figure on this slide, the vast majority of Asian cities do not meet the World Health Organization's air quality guideline for fine particle pollution. The second section of your action plan describes the action or actions to be implemented. Again, a selected action must be a new action and needs to achieve quantifiable reductions in air pollution that address the air pollution concern described in the first section of your plan. Here, you will also define your plan's metric of success. Other components of the second section should include a schedule for implementation of the action, a description of how to involve the public and other important stakeholders in developing and executing the action plan, how you will communicate your action or actions and their results. You should also include the cost of implementing your action and how it will be funded, how you will manage risks and overcome obstacles during implementation of your plan, and how you will ensure that data is used to support your action is of sufficient quality and quantity. You will also need to describe how you will measure or verify your plan's success and identify the primary points of contact for your plan. And, of course, you may provide any supporting information as applicable. In the remainder of this module, we will discuss each component of the action plan and present some examples of the information that we recommend you include in your plan. This follows the structure of the Air Quality Action Plan template, so we recommend having that available as you listen to the module. An air quality action plan starts with characterization of the airshed. In Section 1 of your action plan, you introduce and describe the physical area over which the air pollution problem is occurring. This includes a summary of the air quality issue and pollutant or pollutants of concern, such as PM 2.5, ozone, sulfur oxides, nitrogen oxides, and/or volatile organic compounds. Provide information on the geography, topography, population, and location of major roads. A map is helpful for this purpose. Also, include details of annual and seasonal meteorology and describe the climate and wind patterns using a wind rose. If available, include pollution back trajectories. These can be produced using NOAA's user-friendly high-split model. If requested, EPA can provide technical assistance in using this model. Included on the slide are visual examples of information that should be included in Section 1 of the Action Plan. The left panel shows a map of India along with information on its land area, population, and sources of potential air pollution, such as from energy consumption, industrial activities, and vehicle emissions. The middle panel is a wind rose showing that the prevailing winds in Kuching, Malaysia are from the west, southwest, south, and southeast. The right panel shows pollution back trajectories for Kuching generated using the high-split model. In Section 2 of your action plan, you will describe the current air quality in the airshed and the sources of pollutant emissions. To the extent possible, you should include a breakdown of pollution sources by source type, such as stationary, mobile, transboundary, and other, such as biogenic and geogenic. This information can be obtained from an existing emissions inventory or from appropriate sources of industrial and environmental information. If an emissions inventory does not exist, you may want to consider developing one as a preliminary step in your action plan. It is particularly important to call out sources that may be outside of your direct control, such as those resulting from transboundary transport. Although these sources may complicate attainment of your action plan goals, it may be possible to coordinate control actions on these with another country. Here, you should also provide information on your air monitoring network, such as types and physical locations of instruments, their dates of operation, and the pollutants being measured. Finally, discuss whether the air quality in your airshed is in attainment with applicable air quality standards or other metrics, such as the World Health Organization's air quality guidelines. Present relevant information on air quality control laws and regulations and the implications of any non-attainment designations. Presented on this slide are a couple of examples of information to include in Section 2 of your action plan. On the left is a pie chart that breaks down the sources of PM 2.5 in Taiwan. As you can see, stationary sources that are not classified as industrial are the predominant PM 2.5 sources. On the right are maps and photos of Mongolia's air monitoring stations. Such information forms the basis for selecting what type of action or actions you may choose to pursue. That is, what pollution sources are most important and therefore might be considered good targets of your action plan. Also, you will want to identify existing air quality monitors that can be used to track decreasing concentrations that should result from implementing your action plan and reducing emissions. Once you characterized your airshed or portion of an airshed that is the focus of your action plan, you should have a good grasp of the extent of the air pollution problem and what's driving it. With this information in hand, you may move on to develop the specific action or actions that will lead to measurable decreases in air pollution. Succinctly stated, the objective of your action plan is a statement of how much of what kind of pollution will be reduced, from what sources, how, and by when. The from what sources part of your objective is important, as this will guide the selection of potential control measures. Also, in this section, give details on the technical analysis performed to select your action, such as cost-benefit analyses, stakeholder feedback, emissions inventory projections, and health risk assessments. It is best to connect your proposed action to an air quality concern that is shared by local authorities, as this will help to engage these important stakeholders and increase the chance that your plan will be successful. More will be presented on stakeholder planning later in this module. Give details on whether your proposed action is voluntary or mandatory. Voluntary actions may be easier to implement, and incentives or carrots, if correctly selected, may be effective. However, success in reducing emissions may be more difficult to achieve if control measures are optional. On the other hand, mandatory requirements, or STICs, may have improved chances for success, yet enforcement and compliance assurance may be costly and require updates to your country's air quality rules and regulations. Discuss if the proposed control measure is based on existing technology, such as switching fuel sources in industrial boilers, or on an emerging technology, such as installing a new type of pollution scrubber. The latter option may have a greater impact on emissions reductions, yet comes with a greater risk to project success. We recommend that you capture such applicable risks to your project success in a risk register, discussed in the risk management section of this module. Estimate and provide the basis for proposed emissions reductions for each pollutant. Such could take the form of emissions projections under business as usual and post-action plan scenarios. Finally, state how you will measure the success and effectiveness of your action plan, several examples of which are given on the next slide. Here are examples of metrics you may use to quantify the impact and to measure the effectiveness of your action plan. They may include mass per unit time of decreased emissions, healthcare and environmental cleanup costs avoided, among others. Some examples of a success metric include: by 2012, develop new and improve enforcement of existing air quality regulations to reduce industrial fugitive PM emissions by 50%, or by 2022, reduce PM 2.5 emissions from open burning of agricultural waste by 25%. While the outcome of an action plan should be quantifiable reductions in pollution emissions, your plan may include interim steps, such as improving emissions inventories, air monitoring, or quality control. A metric for an interim step might be, by 2021, update PM 2.5 emissions inventory to be used in action plan for reducing black carbon from mobile sources. Your action plan should include an implementation schedule for your selected action or control measure. This schedule lays out the tasks from start to finish, with an estimate of how long each task will take and milestones that demonstrate completion of each task. In this way, you can plan what needs to be done by a particular date or a particular time period to implement your action. A typical format for such a project schedule is a Gantt chart, examples of which can be found online. Shown in the figure on this slide is a high-level timeline of Taiwan's plan for controlling PM 2.5 levels, starting with development of the plan and ending with the rollout of its Clean Air Action Plan. Your action plan should also include a description of public and stakeholder involvement. Continuous engagement with key stakeholders is fundamental to the success of your action plan and starts with identifying the high-priority groups and agencies involved in or wishing to be involved in your air pollution issue, and working with them to define their roles and responsibilities in planning and implementing your action plan. Such stakeholders may include local and national public officials, academics, business representatives, business associations, and community groups who are or would likely be interested in, can contribute to, and or may be impacted by the selected air quality action or actions. If appropriate for your action, you may want to form an air quality committee consisting of key stakeholders chosen from among the stakeholder groups and agencies. This committee can provide input and expertise, for example, on air quality, public health, transportation issues, etc., during development and implementation of the action plan. The committee can also ensure that all stakeholders have an adequate opportunity to be heard early in the development of the air quality action. As an example, shown here is the membership of an air quality committee that was formed to plan and carry out an action plan with the goal of reducing motor vehicle emissions. An official from the Ministry of the Environment is the committee's chairperson and overall leader and owner of the action plan. A representative from the Ministry of Transportation develops and leads implementation of the Vehicle Retirement and Replacement Program. A public health expert from the Ministry of Health consults on the development of the plan's success metrics. A local trade minister acts as the liaison to vehicle manufacturers, soliciting their input on and answering their questions about the plan. And one or two representatives from citizens and environmental groups ensure that the public's interests and concerns are considered throughout the action planning process. One method to identify stakeholders is to formally announce and solicit the involvement of interested parties, similar to what was done in support of an air quality action in Fairbanks, Alaska, which addressed elevated levels of PM 2.5 caused primarily by burning wood for wintertime heating. You will also need a communications strategy to attract interest in and to share the results of your action plan. In developing a communications strategy, start with the goals and target audience. Ask yourself with whom you wish to connect and what it is you are trying to convey. Are you seeking to simply inform your audience about your plan? Or to persuade the public to participate in a voluntary pollution reduction activity? Or perhaps you wish to notify industrial facilities of their required compliance and your plans for enhanced enforcement. Once you know what you want to say and to whom you wish to say it, develop suitable communication tools. These may include, for example, social media campaigns, paper flyers, posting a plan description to an official government website, or a booth at a local outdoor marketplace or public venue such as a library. Now, it's time to develop a clear message, personalized to your audience and appropriate for your selected methods of communication. This message or messages should meet your communication goals, whether they be to inform, persuade, build interest, solicit input, etc. You should also include in your plan the challenges that you may encounter while planning and implementing your action plan, such as lack of public awareness, lack of coordination and cooperation between government agencies, and misinformation, and how you will overcome these obstacles through targeted communications efforts. Define how you will evaluate the effectiveness of your communications plan, such as the number of attendees at public events or the number of unique visitors to a website. Finally, present how you will approach mid-course corrections and amend your communications approach if you are not meeting your predefined success criteria. Here, we show an example of a tool used to communicate the results of U.S. EPA's National Air Toxics Trend Stations, or NATS, Proficiency Testing, or PT program. NATS consists of 24 monitoring stations and 22 affiliated laboratories distributed in urban and rural areas throughout the continental United States. Every quarter, EPA prepares blind spike samples for analysis by NATS labs to assess if their performance continues to meet the program's objectives. Program stakeholders, including participating state and local air monitoring agencies, EPA regional staff, EPA NATS program and quality assurance leads, and the National Contract Laboratory, asked that the PT results be more transparent and readily accessible. And this website communicates the information to meet the needs of the target audience. To successfully implement your proposed control measure or measures, you have to understand the costs involved. To this end, cost management should be included in your action plan. Here, you will compare the costs between different possible control measures and estimate the cost of your proposed action or control measure. Estimate the cost and revenue, if applicable, for each proposed action, including materials, capital costs, and labor. Describe cost assumptions. This is especially important if you are proposing to implement an emerging technology that is not yet commercially available and that may be expensive to design, test, and install. As shown in the figure on this slide, a component of Taiwan's Clean Air Action Plan is to reduce pollution by way of retrofitting boilers. In this example, the cost of replacing the oil boiler with a heat pump unit was covered in only 2 years by the savings in fuel alone. This cost analysis shows the value in replacing the hospital's boiler and reducing air pollution. There are always risks associated with the execution of any project. In the context of an air quality action plan, a risk is any event that, were it to occur, would adversely impact your ability to achieve the goal of your plan. In the risk management section of your action plan, you should describe the process of identifying, tracking, and minimizing the negative impacts of risks to your plan's success. Examples of 2 common risks that you may encounter are staff turnover and the difficulty of obtaining required permits. As mentioned earlier in this module, voluntary versus mandatory actions and emerging versus proven technologies each have their own risks. As part of your risk management strategy, define and discuss how you will manage the risks associated with each. A preferred method to identify, track, and plan how to respond to action plan risks is through the use of what's known as a risk register. Shown is an example of 2 risks you may encounter as you develop your action plan, along with potential responses. Assess the probability that such a risk will occur and the adverse impact or the consequence to your plan if it does. Taken together, probability times consequence is equal to the qualitative risk. Focus on minimizing the impacts of the risks with the highest qualitative risk by reserving, if possible, contingency funding to overcome the obstacle if the risk is realized. This funding represents the quantitative risk. To show that your action plan has been successful, you will need to show that you have achieved your emissions reduction goal or other success metric. In the section of your action plan on quality management, you should describe how you will ensure that you obtain data of sufficient quality and quantity to be able to conclude that you have achieved success. Your approach to quality management may include the development of a Quality Assurance Project Plan, or a QAP, similar to the example shown in the figure on this slide, or by performing periodic data reviews and technical audits. EPA and Battelle are available to provide technical assistance in this area. The final 2 sections of your action plan include the contact information and roles and responsibilities of each contributor to the plan, and any relevant supporting information.